Hello and welcome to the world of perspective drawings. The first exercise goes over perspective measurements. So to begin, this is exercise 8.1. Now I'm in AutoCAD. Now you all have the option of completing these exercises in AutoCAD if you would like. The DWG file will be attached to this YouTube video and will also be attached to the overview of the assignment. So I've basically copied exercise 8.1 into an AutoCAD drawing file and locked the layer. I have some layers already created in this drawing, but for this purposes it doesn't really matter. We're not going to redraw the whole thing, just kind of the parts that we need to. So I've selected polyline here, and it says subdivide the depth of each plane into 4 segments. Alright, so we have the center of vision and we have these kind of planes that are converging in. If you'll notice, as the planes come towards the center of vision, they begin to diminish in size. So that's the basic premise of perspective drawings, is that the farther away things get from you, the smaller they get. So we're going to, in order to start this, we're just going to do X's here to find the geometric center of the planes. Okay, just like so. And of course this is the same concept that you would do if you were doing this by hand. You would just take your scalar straight edge and from point to point and draw a line. The second thing we're going to do is create the from the center point. I'm actually going to come here, come out, and you'll see that that is actually the center point as well. If I click on the line, you'll see that's the center point that it's striking. So really I can come to the center point because we're assuming that this line is parallel with the picture plane. Oh, that was it, right? Okay. Drop these lines just to make sure we're getting the center, and that's the benefit of using CAD. It's going to automatically give me that midpoint. Okay, and same thing through here. And again, if you were doing this by hand, you would just measure this distance and find that point of your line, your middle point of your line. It should run right through your geometric center as well. And the exercise axes us for 4 segments. So now we're getting there, kind of have 2. And I'm just going to do a straight line down. Let me turn on my ortho. You would just make sure that your line is completely parallel to your other straight lines. There's going to be no diminishing of size or converging, so they can just be straight. You don't have to vanish to anything. And trim the excess off. Same concept here. Just come straight across. That. And trim the excess off. Of course, you would just erase it. Draw your line lightly, and then come back over with a darker line. If you're doing this by hand. And this guy, and really this becomes an offset. So it's not just a straight line. So I'm actually going to use my offset tool in AutoCAD, and you would just make sure that your line, you could use a roller ruler, which would really be helpful in this exercise, doing it by hand, but make sure you're parallel with this line and just bring it straight over to your geometric center. And it should coincide with the center that we drew previously. Oh, try to trim that. TR, select everything, right click. There we go. And again, I don't need that. And this one up here is going to be the same thing. So I'm just going to draw this line and offset to my geometric center and just trim the line. And what I'm going to do now is actually unfreeze my layer. And if you were doing this by hand, you would just draw your lines in darker just to make this to define them. And there's is that. And actually, let me trim that. Alright, and kind of delete the other lines that I don't need. No longer need the X's. Trim that midpoint. Do that for all of them now. And I'm just going to match my properties to that thickness. And get rid of these X's. And do a match property. Clean that up a little bit. There, last one. So now we have subdivided each of these planes into 4 segments per the instruction of the exercise 8.1. Exercise 8.2 asks us to subdivide each of the planes into 5 equal parts. So we're going to assume that each of these plane lines that are closest to us are parallel with the picture plane in order to divide the entire plane so that we can cast lines to the center of vision to create a perspective segmented sections to 5 equal parts. So if you're doing this by hand, you would measure this distance and find and subdivide it into 5 equal parts. A lot easier in AutoCAD. I can use this command called divide, and I'm going to select this portion here. It asks me to enter the number of segments. In this case, there's going to be 5. I'm just going to repeat that command again on these sides. There. Okay. And now all is left to do is simply to draw my lines from my determined 5 segmented pieces along that picture plane. Let me turn off my ortho too. And now I'm just going to draw these lines and have them converge towards the center of vision. Just coming in. Oh. Fix that. Come back again. And the last one. Let's go ahead and strike this from here. And the last one. Alright, so now all that's left to do is to trim these lines and just do some match properties. So I'm just going to trim that away. Trim this away. And hopefully you'll see my keys being captured. I'm using a lot of shortcuts. I'm using TR for trim for AutoCAD. So I'm just trimming these lines away. Over here, click here, trim the lines away. There we are. And then I'm just going to do a match properties here. Okay. There we go. Great. So now that completes exercise 8.2, and you can see there's 5 equal segments, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they all diminish in size as they converge towards the center of vision. Alright, so this last one, double the depth of each plane. So what we're going to do is just draw these lines. We see that one already. These lines that are going towards the center of vision. Great. Let me do my X's again. Okay. On this side, this side. And I'm going to find that center point. Come through. I think I need that. And we'll just extend this guy out. Polyline from the center. And here. From the center. And we'll come in here. Alright. So now that we have this first piece done, let me have this line. Maybe I should make that green just so we can see it. Call it a center line so it's nice and bright and we can see it. And it is a center line, so I guess that would be appropriate, wouldn't it? Okay. Still on my construction line layer. So what I want to do is draw a line from the furthest corner here in this plane and run it so it intersects with the midsection end of the plane closer towards the center of vision. And what you would do is, and you see this line here, if you can't, let me just redraw that in so it's a little clearer. I just have it as a dashed line. So this will be how this plane diminishes in size as it goes towards the center of vision. So I have this line that I've drawn in now. Let me go ahead and make that blue so we can see that easier. Okay. And in AutoCAD's case, I'm just going to extend the line down. And this is going to give me the point where I can run a line perpendicular, which will give me the next plane. And you would simply repeat that pattern. This is how you project the depth. So again, we have the center line there, so I'm just going to come here to this edge closer towards us and bring it down towards my the midpoint that's converging towards the center of vision. Extend the line down. It gives me the next point that I can raise a perpendicular line up to give me that edge furthest away. And we only needed to go too deep, so that would be 1, 2. So in this case, then I am just going to trim the rest of the information away, and I no longer need that or that. And make sure that's trimmed. And in this case, then I will just match properties, and the horizon line that I have drawn in here, I'll trim that away and just so it looks a little bit cleaner. There we go. So that's the first one. I'm just going to repeat the process. So let's do this one next. Same process. I'm just going to draw this in so we can see it a little bit better. So the plane furthest or closest towards us, and then bring that to the middle point, the midpoint. And I'm going to use the extend function in AutoCAD command and extend it. And remember, these lines are perpendicular, or not perpendicular, parallel rather. So I'm just going to offset them through and offset to that point, and that's going to give me that first plane. And I don't need that. I'm going to delete all that anyway, but and just repeat the process on the furthest plane down to the midpoint. Extend, that'll give us the next plane. Offset. There we are. I'll trim that. Trim that. We actually don't need that anymore. That anymore. That. And we can trim this. And trim this. And then I'll just do a match properties so it's everything's nice and consistent. And that gives us the second plane. For the third plane, the same thing. Line closest towards us to the middle point, and I'm just going to extend to this dashed line here. I'm going to offset this line parallel to this line, and that'll give us the first part of the plane, and extend to the midpoint, and then extend all the way through, really. Offset. There you go. And then I'll give us that plane in depth. And that to that would be that. I'll just go ahead and match properties and clean this up. So go now. There. Snapping to the edge. And all these lines are converging towards my center of vision. So if I draw these in, you would see they all go to the center of vision. Okay, so I'm just going to trim and delete these lines. There you go. Now the last one, and really this could be inferred. Now that we have this point, if you have that, you could just parallel offset this line, and theoretically it should line up, because these lines do not have to converge towards the center of vision. And really, that should be it. You can infer that. And we have that line being cast. So that's gone. Trim this one more time. Trim that and that. And that should give us that next plane in depth. And I'll just delete that center line now, so we're not going to go through that process. And again, I'll trim out the horizon line in the background. And there you have it. So that concludes the perspective measurements exercises, and that is 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3.